Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com and the Big Four Accounting Firms YouTube channel. Before we get started, just wanted to remind everybody to support us if you have a chance or if you can. Even $1 helps, and we have a link in the description to a website called Buy Me a Coffee. It's just a way to donate to us and support us. Again, any amount is helpful so that we can keep putting out content. And there's also other ways for you to support us in the show notes to this podcast or on YouTube in the description. In today's podcast, I wanted to recommend a book that I recently reread, and I think I've recommended it here already, but it was probably years ago. And I wanted to recommend a book that will help people not only understand what working in the corporate world is like, but also the Big Four accounting firms, because the person who wrote it worked in the Big Four accounting firms. And he just provides a really good background on what working in corporate America is like and how to succeed in corporate America, but also how to exit corporate America. And the book is Fire Me, I Beg You by Robbie, Abed. This book doesn't have any groundbreaking advice in it, but I like it because he encourages you to quit your job if it makes you miserable. And the reason I recommend that is because a lot of people in the Big Four accounting firms to become miserable over time, and he was working in Big Four accounting firms when he was miserable, so it's just sort of proven by this book. And also his resignation letter in here, his famous resignation letter, that's what he calls it. He wrote it to the head of Deloitte Consulting, who at the time was Puneet Renjen, and if you have done your research, you know that he's the global CEO now. I like this book because it encourages you to quit your job if you don't like it, which I think a lot of people in the Big Four accounting firms don't do. And I think that's the biggest motivation from this book. But it doesn't end there. It's also about how to get your next job, how to go on to the next phase of your life. But back to the resignation letter. So he talks about this fabulous resignation letter that the CEO of Deloitte Consulting really liked and sent to everybody in the firm. And so I think it's kind of like a mentor in the Big Four accounting firms if you read this book. And it's also related to somebody that worked in the Big Four accounting firms. And he also gives a resignation letter template off of that. I'm not sure how much you need a resignation letter when you work in the Big Four accounting firms because people send so many resignation letters. And you can read some funny ones. They're online, like on Reddit or Going Concern. Because sometimes people get super fed up and they just quit and send some really nasty resignation letters. And I've read some funny ones too. For example, earlier in my career, when somebody quit, they sent a resignation letter and they talked about how they were playing video games in their living room and they should have been working and they're still getting paid. But there's all kinds of things like that when you work in the Big Four accounting firms. But this book has a lot of other career advice. He has advice about how to use LinkedIn and how to grow your network on LinkedIn, how to get a job off of LinkedIn. He talks about how important LinkedIn is. And I'm not sure you can do that many amazing things on LinkedIn anymore. When he wrote this book, it was kind of when people weren't using LinkedIn as much. And there's a lot of spam stuff on LinkedIn now. And one piece of advice that he doesn't give in this book is I think it's good not to network with recruiters on LinkedIn because they'll just spam your messages and they use your network and pester the people in your network. So that would be one thing I would say. But he tells you how to use LinkedIn, and that's one thing he says about himself. He's like this expert LinkedIn person. You can check out his profile on LinkedIn. He keeps it very brief, and maybe you can copy his LinkedIn if you like the way it looks. But there's like a whole chapter on here about using LinkedIn. So it's good from that perspective. He's also really big on networking. And even if you're an introvert, he provides advice on how to network. He's obsessed with networking. He said he did like 250 coffee dates or something. And so he's really big on networking. And that's one thing in the Big Four accounting firms they're not really good at helping you at as networking. They encourage you to do it, but they don't really show you how. They don't show you how to join industry groups unless you have like a really good partner or mentor. So that's one thing I agree with him on. And he really talks about that because it's your network that can get you the job the easiest. And I agree with him on that. So those are two really useful things in here, is building your network using LinkedIn, but also just all his advice on just career advice. And even his website, he has advice on his Fire Me, I Beg You. He has multiple websites, but his Fire Me, I Beg You website is really good for career advice. It says career advancement guide, and he has some links in there that you can really utilize. If you're worried about career advancement, it doesn't matter what stage of your career you're in right now. You can really utilize this website. He even has something on there about office politics. A lot of people don't really get into office politics. He talks about office politics. Another good piece of advice that he has in this book is to check out of work mentally. Like, quit putting everything into your job. And that's something I could really say about the Big Four accounting firms, because a lot of people, they're used to getting straight A's in school or doing really well in school. If you're an accountant, you probably did really well in school. You probably got your master's. You probably have a certification. You're used to going above and beyond. But doing that in a corporation as an employee is not really going to help you out as much. Yeah, you might get an okay raise, but you're not really getting equity until you become a partner, and you can burn yourself out really easily. And that's what he talks about, what happened to him. And so caring a little bit less in the workplace will help you do that. And I could go into that, but this book, he really goes into it really well. And so I'm going to put a link in the description to this podcast today. And it's going to be an affiliate link so that you can help me out if you do decide to buy this book. But check it out however you want to, whether it's library or buy it on Amazon. But I'm going to do an Amazon affiliate link so you can help me out if you do that. But I really recommend this book. It doesn't matter what stage you're in your career, whether you're at the beginning or end, because if you're at the beginning, this will give you a preview of what it's like to work in the corporation. Now, he is a little bit negative and a little bit overconfident and cocky. He thinks he's the best at everything now. So that's one thing I will say. But other than that, he gives an advice on approaching your career, like kicking back and not caring as much. That's something that it takes a long time to learn, and you might have to go to an executive coach or a therapist to learn that, because if you do go to an executive coach or therapist, that's the advice they give you a lot of times. Like, if you're not getting the response that you need at work, and you're trying, if you're going to your partner, your manager, you want to know what you can do better. You're doing better. You're making sales. You're actually like helping with sales at work. You're on really technical projects and you're still not advancing the way you want, then a lot of them will tell you to scale back and work on other things. And that's what he also encourages in this book, is like working on side things on that could advance your career on the side versus all at your job, like in the Big Four accounting firms or wherever you decide to work. But this book is really good for career advancement, for quitting work, for advice on how to quit work, how to use LinkedIn, how to use networking. So there's just multiple reasons why I like this book. And I think everybody who wants to work at the Big Four accounting firm or does work at the Big Four accounting firm should read this book. So that's the podcast for today. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast, stay up to date. Support us financially through the Buy Me a Coffee link if you can. And again, I'm going to put an Amazon affiliate link for this book in the show notes, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Big Four Accounting Firms. Thanks for listening.